Hi everyone, welcome to ACE Psychology. If you're new here, hello, I'm Miss M. I am your tutor for everything psychology. So whether you're in the ACE program or whether you just want to be an ACE at psychology, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you are always up to date with the latest psychology info and theories. So today we are going over the Freeman Study, and this Freeman Study has to do with a clinical approach to psychology. More specifically, we are pairing virtual reality and trying to basically fit in the shoes of someone who has schizophrenia. Now, most people that are studying schizophrenia don't have schizophrenia themselves, although they can look at the ICD-11 and possibly diagnose this. It's not something where you can put yourself in another person's shoes and say, oh yes, I understand exactly what you're going through. So what we're doing in this study is we are using virtual reality to basically come up with this idea of what someone with schizophrenia is going through when it comes to persecutory ideation. Now, persecutory ideation is this idea that someone is out to get you. Someone has a vendetta against you, that you are somehow going to be harmed by people, but there is like no evidence. There's nothing to back this up. It is clearly a delusion, and it is actually one of the most common symptoms of schizophrenia itself. Now, it's important to understand the context of the Freeman Study. Like, what is the background? What is the idea of this? Around 1990s, early 2000s, somewhere around 2003, I believe, was when virtual reality just started to come out. And virtual reality was being used to help treat people with mental disorders, phobias. More specifically, it was helping people via exposure therapy. Now, exposure therapy is like exposing someone to their fear or their phobia in small increments over time until they're getting used to it. They're becoming acclimated to their phobia over small periods of time. So here's an example. Let me just grab my pen here. So if you were afraid of snakes and the shape of a pen kind of possibly even triggered the phobia for you. In reality, in real life, we would present you with a pen and have you get used to it and have you be very comfortable holding a pen, and then maybe we would get like a long brown stick and have you be very comfortable next to it or seeing it outside, and then we would gradually go up to possibly a stuffed animal snake, then possibly a rubber snake, and then even a real snake, to the point where you may be able to hold that real snake in your hand and you'll be comfortable with it. But for virtual reality has made this so much easier, especially with phobias, where we can use exposure therapy in a virtual setting to help people acclimate to their phobias and eventually get over their phobias. It's actually pretty cool. The main theories of this study are dealing with persecutory ideation, and I did just go through that a little bit. It's the idea that people are being hostile towards you, and there's no rhyme or reason. There's no evidence for it. Nobody can figure out why it's happening or to the caliber that the person is in fear. And persecutory ideation is one of the most common symptoms of schizophrenia. Now, when someone is experiencing persecutory ideation as someone who is schizophrenic, it is very hard to understand what they're going through. This can be something that like completely changes their life. It can encompass their life. They can begin to hide and isolate themselves due to this, and it's very hard for people on the outside, especially researchers and psychologists, to understand this. So in the study, we are using virtual reality to hopefully better help understand what people are going through who have schizophrenia. And a better understanding is basically going to lead to better ways of treatment. All right, so let's talk about the aims of the Freeman Study. So the aim of the study was to see if people who have never had schizophrenia, never had a mental illness, if they would have thoughts of persecutory ideation after using virtual reality. The research also aimed to see whether or not there are cognitive or emotional factors that predict the likelihood of persecutory ideation. The researchers hypothesized that there would be a small amount of participants that did experience persecutory ideation after using the virtual reality. And these people would exhibit higher amounts of emotional stress and paranoia. Let's look at the design of the study. study. The sample consisted of 12 males and 12 females, and these were all college students at the University of London in the UK. On average, all participants were 26 years old. And it's very important to know there is no previous mental illness at all in any of our participants. So this study used a lab experiment because the place that we were in, or the place our participants were in, was not a normal environment for them. Now, when participants entered this virtual reality scene, it was basically a library scene, and they were asked to walk around and basically just observe and monitor what was going on. There were people in different areas of the library, and mind you, this was only about 5 minutes long, and participants were not told the aim of the study, and they were simply told to explore the environment and form impressions of the people that they saw within the virtual reality game. Everyone saw approximately 5 avatars that were in the library scene. 3 of the avatars sat at one desk and 2 sat at another desk. Occasionally, the avatars moved, they smiled, they looked left, looked right, maybe talked to one another. And after leaving this virtual reality game, which was only 5 minutes long, participants were then asked to take a questionnaire. This questionnaire was called the Brief Symptom Inventory, the BSI. This is a self-report kind of design, and it had 53 items on it. And it tended to focus on people's feelings, which is a measure of interpersonal sensitivity. There were other questionnaires that were given that focused more on things like paranoia, anxiety, depression. And it's important to know that these types of questions were closed questions. And participants gave their answers based on like a numerical scale. So for example, if we were focusing on anxiety, there were about 20 questions that focused on anxiety, and the participants had to rate their anxiety levels on a scale of 1 to 4. So some people may be thinking, wait, did they only give this questionnaire after the virtual reality? And this could be bad because maybe the questionnaire itself primed people to be paranoid. So what they did was they took an equal amount of the participants and actually gave them this same questionnaire prior to the virtual reality and then gave it to them again after to see if there was a difference or change. Now, after these participants took the questionnaire, there were semi-structured questionnaires that were given to our participants. And this was really good because not only are we going to be able to get quantitative data, but these semi-structured interviews are going to give us qualitative data as well. Okay, so let's focus on the results and the findings of the study. There was significant findings on the paranoia scores that were taken from the questionnaire and the paranoia scores that were taken from the semi-structured interviews. So this means that people were taking the questionnaires and jotting down that they had slight paranoia, and that was shown to the interviewers while we were giving them that semi-structured interview. So it was very visible to a third party. For the most part, the results showed that participants had positive opinions about the avatars. But some participants did have ideas of persecution. So for example, here's one of the questions. They were talking about me behind my back. 11 participants said no, and they did not agree with that statement. But 8 of them agreed a little bit, 3 agreed moderately, and 2 agreed definitely. And it's important to know that there was no difference that was shown between males and females in this study. So in terms of predictive factors for persecutory ideation in the virtual reality, they did not correlate with the thoughts of paranoia or the paranoia scores. But higher levels of interpersonal sensitivity and high levels of anxiety were significantly correlated. Freeman ended up concluding that people do attribute mental states to virtual reality characters. And although it was mostly positive, they can attribute and post characteristics of persecutory ideation to these same characters that they thought of as positive. And overall, people are more likely to show persecutory ideation if they have higher levels of interpersonal sensitivity or high levels of anxiety. So let's quickly evaluate this study. Now, this study had a lot of standardized procedures. Each participant saw the exact same thing within the virtual reality game. So this study does have high reliability. However, it does compromise the ecological validity within the assessment process. Because let's face it, this was not a real environment. It was digital. Now, the fact that this study relies on self-reports was great because it does allow for qualitative data. So we are able to understand why participants felt the way they did, or even more so, even a little bit more detail or in depth about how they were feeling during this experiment. Now, the sample was relatively small. We have 24 participants, and all the participants were from the same exact university. So this is not a representative sample, and it does limit the generalizability of it. Well, this study does help psychology as a whole because it did show some type of predictive factors of people with persecutory ideation. So for those people that are schizophrenic that are showing signs of persecutory ideation, we also see this link to interpersonal sensitivity and anxiety. But however, again, this study was virtual reality, so it is difficult to apply this to everyday life, but it does get us a little bit closer to understanding the idealistics of persecutory ideation and how they can come about in people who already have or show display signs of interpersonal sensitivity or high anxiety. All right, well, there you have it. That is the link between virtual reality and schizophrenia. I really hope that you learned something here in this study and you were able to see and understand, maybe even know now what persecutory ideation is, and that it is one of the most common symptoms in schizophrenia. And now you're able to tell what are those leading causes that are attributed to people that show persecutory ideation. And we discovered that's interpersonal sensitivity and high anxiety. So if this is something that you liked or you found this interesting, please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. If you are in the A-level psychology, please see the other videos that I have. They may be linked down below or within this video as well. You can go ahead and check those out on my page. I want to thank you guys so much for being here, and I appreciate those who are not in the program and you're just looking to be an ace at psychology and understand the world a little bit more around us. Salute to you. All right. Thanks so much for being here, guys. Have a wonderful day.